So I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but sometimes I feel like the world, and especially the digital world, is moving so quickly that I feel pretty slow in comparison. And I've really been grappling with this a lot recently as I've started my YouTube channel because I feel like YouTube as a platform and the video formats that really perform on this platform are often very, very quick. And the cutting, the editing is just really, really fast. People are talking really fast. People are just kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I have to say, I'm a little slower than that. I am the type of person in my real life, in the real world, I am definitely the type of person who likes to think pretty intentionally about what I'm going to say next, which comes with a lot of pauses normally in my conversation style. And I actually got a really thoughtful comment recently from Samantha on one of my videos. And so I'll put it up here. But she made a really great point just about how quick editing styles have become and how, and it wasn't a critique, it was a very awesome piece of feedback, but how she thought that in this day and age where things are so fast, where people are cutting out their pauses, that it's actually very refreshing to hear more organic and authentic vocal patterns and how people are typically speaking. And I've definitely started to see more of this content become more prominent on the YouTube platform, which is exciting for me because one, on the editing front, makes things a little bit easier, but it also is kind of daunting because I think that I've been interested in doing this video essay editing style where things are very quick and fast, and I get to use and lean on a script, which is a little bit of a crutch sometimes when you don't want to have that quick thinking on the fly and just come up with all these ideas. I think also if I want to dig deeper into specific ideas, having a script really helps there if I want to bring up specific data points and such. But this whole conversation that I had with Samantha, as well as just starting to think more thoughtfully about the way that I'm showing up on YouTube, brought me to wanting to make this video where we just kind of talk about how vocal patterns have gotten to this point, how our attention spans have gotten so short that the type of content that often is rewarded on platforms, and especially short form video content, is this very quick, very punchy style that doesn't really show how normal people move through the world. And for this video today, I am challenging myself to edit as little as possible. I'm going to try and make this a true stream of conscious ramble on the fly. I do have over here to my left an outline of things that points that I would like to hit on, but it's very much not a script. But I think that this is an important topic because we're all consuming this type of content day in and day out. And even in my initial choices around editing some of my recent videos, I have felt compelled to do it in this very quick, fast way, thinking that that is what performs on the platform. And so if I want my messaging to reach more of an audience, I will need to emulate the other types of content that I see on the platform. But today we're trying things a little bit differently, and I wanted to do a very true, unscripted, low editing take on just this current state of the busyness and fastness and quickness of the world, and how sometimes I myself feel a little bit of friction just moving through the world where I think that I might sometimes come off as slow. I've also, as an aside, started to notice this in my own life here in New York. Things are very, very fast. I'm noticing this especially at my office, where I think I come from California, where things are a little bit just slower paced. People take their time generally a little more on things. And even with my first one-on-ones with my new manager, it's been like, quick, boom, boom, boom. Like, what's the status on things? And I'm like, whoo, give me a second to breathe. But yeah, New York aside, I think that this is just a broader thing that we are seeing rewarded because of the internet and the types of content that's rewarded on the internet. So I thought, let's just unpack it today. Okay, I just had to edit because I was about to forget. My name's Kate. I make content on intentional living, financial literacy, and our social media, our relationships with social media, and tech and digital media literacy. So that's what you can kind of expect on my channel. But to get back to the unscripted nature of this, I do think that this fast-paced culture that we're in and the type of things on the internet that have gotten popular, especially as someone who has formerly worked for TikTok, especially I can speak to short form video content. This type of content has affected our attention spans collectively, societally, in really drastic ways. And I think that we don't even realize how this reverberates across basically every part of our culture right now until you start to take a step back, slow down, and zoom out and look at the ways that it is starting to touch different elements of your life. I think that some big areas where I have noticed this type of content really start to, have a grip on the way that things are done is, for one, in the movie industry. So what you can tell, what you can notice is that over the years, movies, long form movies, the type of movies that you see in the cinema, they have also gotten to this point where things are fast cuts, action packed. I forget which movie I was at recently. I remember what it was. It was Oppenheimer, maybe a year and a half, whenever that came out ago. I was actually at the movie theater like, what is going on? It was moving too fast. It was jumping in and out of different styles way too quickly. And it was just, the cuts were so quick. And I actually left that movie theater and I was with my friends and I was like, I literally got a little nauseous watching that movie because it was just so fast. But I do think that it was actually lauded in the press for having this really punchy, pushing the boundaries editing style. I think about this in my own life compared to the type of movies that I'm normally inclined to watch. I actually really love old movies. I love old movies. I love random indie films that have been put out over the years. But one of the things that really draws me to older movies is in this culture where, excuse me, in this culture where things like TikTok and these really fast, superhero movies, whatever, this is like the, Hollywood, what's being put out there. I'm drawn to older movies because they feel almost like they're forcing me to push my attention span. And I love that about sitting down and watching a movie. One of my favorite things to do is put on an older movie, something like 70s, 80s, put my phone away from me, somewhere, different room, just somewhere that I'm not going to go and reach it, and sit down and watch this movie. And to me, it just helps me heal my attention span because I'm starting to just think more intentionally about, I'm going to spend this time watching the movie. I'm not going to be tempted to pick up my phone at the same time and be scrolling on my couch while also watching a movie because it's just not the way that the director wanted that ever to be watched. And I find this to be a really pleasurable experience. I think it makes us more attuned to, the way that the movie was made to be watched. And I don't know, something about it just feels healing and cathartic to me. And I think in this world, especially a world that's so influenced by tech and digital media and digital culture in general, that shortening of our attention spans is immensely amplified because, and we've talked about this, people have had conversations with me in the comments, and I've touched on this in other videos. I think we're in a world right now that is kind of built to extract as much as possible from us as individual potential consumers on the internet. So I actually on the docket am going to be making a video about some of the reasons I think that the internet has gotten to such a point. But essentially, our attention spans and our attention is being monetized constantly. And so these apps are just designed to draw us in, and designed in a way, they're engineered to get us to spend as much time as possible on there. And easier way to do it is just making the content so easy to switch from one thing to the next, so you never get bored, you're never distracted, or you're always distracted. There's always something to pick up, consume, scroll, and then at the same time monetize that by pushing ads in there and trying to get you to consume things, like physical things, buy things. These smartphones and apps and the fact that we have a computer in our pocket or in our hands at all times of day is training us to seek that constant stimulation, seek that instant gratification. If you ever want something, it's at the click of your finger, you can find it. If you're ever distracted or bored, I talked about that in another video, you can literally always have that boredom satiated by finding a distraction and just consuming something random. It's really a crisis. And when you start to think about the fact that this is also all a large scheme to monetize us and try and squeeze as much value from each potential consumer as possible, that's when it really starts to get dark and concerning for me. So I think it's important to try and challenge our attention spans, to try and allow us to feel bored and not reach for that easy distraction. Try to sit down and watch the long old movie that has really extended cuts, or, you know, a full conversation that is just from one camera angle and they literally don't make any sort of editing or cuts at all. I think all of this is really important in this day and age. And let me just make sure I'm not losing my train of thought, which I am. I lost my train of thought. Let me come back to, here's another one that I was thinking about recently. And I've talked about this specifically in another video, but the way that TikTok and algorithm built social media platforms have started to impact our speech, I think that I noticed this quickness of speech also being rewarded in our daily lives as well. And you can see it in the content, obviously, but I do think that even in my day-to-day conversations with people, if someone is more entrenched and into consuming on the internet and spends more time on the internet and is, you know, chronically online, as we would say. Quick note from the editor. Hi, my name's Kate. Past Kate used the phrase chronically online, and it sounds almost a little judgmental or shamey in this section. I just wanted to clear up. This is in no way, shape, or form meant to judge people who spend time on the internet. As we all know, there's great stuff on the internet. This is more so meant to draw a distinction between people who might, because of the addictive nature of this type of technology, be spending so much time online that they're out of touch with the day-to-day life IRL experience of living in the real world. And that is not to shame those people either, but I just wanted to call that out because I think this chronically online phrase can sound a little judgmental and have a shamey undertone. That's not my intention here, and I wanted to make that clear. So let's get back to past Kate's point. You know, chronically online, as we would say. These are people who are kind of falling into these catchphrases. Their speech is just essentially the type of talk that's been like just churned over and over again on algorithms and on things like TikTok. And I struggle in conversations where I am talking to someone who is more online than I am. And I feel like I'm just moving a little bit slowly. I've talked about this in other videos, but I was at this party one time and I was talking to someone and we were having this conversation, but I swear it felt like we were speaking two different languages because she was speaking in TikTok and I was speaking in my own speech pattern, and I just felt really slow. I felt like I could not keep up with the pace at which she was, you know, slay queen. Like it was just the vocal patterns were not. We were just missing each other. It wasn't really making sense, and the conversation wasn't really going anywhere. I felt this recently on a group chat that I'm in, where someone has been sending these memes, and I'm just like, I don't know what these refer to, and like the cultural noise and the fact that everyone is consuming similar types of content and then just starting to say similar types of thing, this really to me feels a little dissociative, or, you know, just feels like it's just, I feel a little out of place sometimes in these conversations or in these circles of the internet. So I've been thinking about it a lot, especially as I do enter making a YouTube channel and trying to create content that's authentic to me, but also going to be entertaining, at least in some fashion, or informative or educational for people to want to consume as well. Just something I'm thinking about. Drop a comment. Let me know how you're thinking about this. If you would like to see slower paced, less edited, more authentic stuff more often, or are you down with the video essays and things that are more scripted out and edited to a perfect T? I'm curious your take as well. But just to bring myself back to it, I think that we're also in this culture right now where everything has gotten to be so go, go, go all day, all night. And this was happening long before, digital media in particular proliferated this. But we just are in this age where everything is very fast. We are trained to be little production machines. We're trained to be consuming at all times of day. And it just feels like what's rewarded in society is being able to keep up with that pace. There are things like hustle culture and having a grind set and just being, trying to extract as much possible, be as productive as possible. That I feel like is really prevalent on the internet and just in my daily life. Again, I live in New York. I feel like hustle culture is kind of a buzz here constantly. It's part of the energy, which is exciting, but also makes me a little nervous if I culturally fit in here sometimes. But I do think this quickness of pace and this go, go, go nature also really distracts us and discourages us from having moments of introspection, having moments where we can slow down and become more in touch with ourselves and figure out what we truly want out of life. And if you've ever been feeling confused about that, I made a whole other video on intentional living and how I try and bring this into my daily life and how I try to be, block out the noise to listen to my truest version of myself so I can show up in the world in an authentic way. And I think that a big part of that for me, of tapping into my authenticity, required spending less time on social media platforms and the digital media landscape in general. Because when you are getting that amount of noise and stimulation and activity and content constantly, it really starts to, at least for me, just start to get all confused in my head. I was like, wait, is this really what I think? Or is this just something that I've been hearing time and time again? So is this the way that I think I'm supposed to be thinking because of that? That was a word salad, but definitely in my head, it was just pinging around okay, what if this is actually me? And who am I really? And what am I when I'm not constantly consuming content that is influencing the way that I think, the way that I speak, the way that I show up in the world? And to tie it back to Samantha's point, I think because culture in general has gotten so go, 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 moving from one thing to the next, we've started to become uncomfortable with things like silences, like taking a moment to think about what you're about to say before you say it. Every single moment of the day can be filled with noise, with activity, with content, with distraction. And because of that, we have started to lean on this as a way to, distance ourselves from the regular world, it feels like in some ways. And so because we've had this easy out, instant gratification, constant stimulation that we can turn to, the thought or the experience of seeing someone right now, seeing me struggle to find a word or think a little bit more about a topic and having that air of a moment of silence, that feels a little jarring. That feels uncomfortable, especially when the content that we're consuming is constantly cut to take out those moments of the just reality, those moments of a human being a human and not coming up with the right word on time, and just making it to this really condensed, very catchy, flashy thing to consume, but not really truly attuned with our typical speech patterns as human beings who are flawed and sometimes need a little bit of grace in order to get to the right words. I think there's so much value in trying to slow down and listen and think a little bit more before we make decisions in this world. And am I the only one who thinks this? Am I the only one who feels this way? It feels to me like, I don't know, sometimes it feels like I might be alone on this. So if you made it to this point in the video, please leave a comment just to affirm for me that I might not be the only one who experiences this kind of like cognitive dissonance or whatever sort of dissonance every day when I move through the world. It's all so fast paced, and even someone like myself who does try and be very intentional and conscious about what I consume, tries to detox from the digital world as much as I possibly can, and has tried to cultivate a community of like-minded individuals who feel similarly to me. Even I feel like I struggle with this and kind of the complications that come from it because, I mean, I work in advertising and tech. I'm going into an office every single day. I have to sit on the computer and be like still taking in content. I'm still on LinkedIn. I'll say it. Like, I'm not completely off social media. I got to have my little professional presence on there. So I still struggle with this as well. And I wonder if any of you have any sort of tips that you can share as well. I would love to hear it and have a conversation in the comments. I do think that mindfulness and having an intentional relationship with tech and trying to avoid that constant stimulation is so important in this day and age. And I think that slowing down can also really help you tap into your creativity more, tap into more of a strong sense of agency, because when we are caught up in a constant cycle of consumption, I think it can start to feel really easy to not take action in life and feel like you just need to, oh dear, there's an ambulance that might be coming by, so this is the real deal right here. Oh, the sounds of the city. New York City, baby, I'm here. I really hope that even without my usage of a script, I've been able to pull together cohesive, cogent thoughts that make you at least try and expand your mind today. But I think that I make this entire video just to share what I'm working on, because there's constantly stuff for us to be working on if you are trying to be more intentional about the way that you move through the world. And just realizing that you're not alone if you also are struggling sometimes with feeling like you may be slower than the world around you, and especially this digital environment. I think that it's so important that we all learn to slow down a little bit, become more in touch with ourselves, and give each other more grace when it takes a second to get to a thought or find the right word. Because we've been trained and we're constantly bombarded with imagery and content and stimuli that takes out those moments of people being human and coming to the right word, then I think we've started to move to a place where people don't give each other that much time and don't give each other that much grace to be flawed and normal human beings. I wouldn't even say it's a flaw. It's just normal. It's struggling to come up with something to say, feeling a little flustered when you're on camera and you're talking to your phone in an empty room. These are really normal experiences. And I think it's a shame that we've all just become so trained to swipe to the next thing as quickly as possible because we're slightly uncomfortable in the fact that someone has a normal speech pattern. So if you, like me, find it refreshing and authentic when people do have normal speech patterns, I think this is something that I like about certain podcasts, that I can tell they aren't really over editing their stuff and they just bring on people who are quite intelligent and can come up with things and are very witty. Like, I think I'm drawn to that sort of content naturally, but I think in general, there's a space for people who want to slow down a little bit, feel like things are more authentic. And I hope that I can find that space and also create it a little bit more on my YouTube channel. This is seriously something I've been grappling with a lot, and I'd love the opportunity and the grace to slow down a little bit more, not feel so forced to be on all the time, because I think when I have been creating content that I thought, oh, I'm going to edit this a bunch and I want to stick to the script and I want to be on and flashy and presenting to people, then this is the content that I sometimes actually struggled to make. Like, if you guys saw the behind the scenes, it would be like me stumbling over my words and then, recentering myself and then trying again and then stumbling over my words again and then having to cut out like 4 different takes before I finally got to the thing that I wanted to say. I think if we all start to enjoy this more fluid stream of consciousness, talking, chatty style video, it would be so fun. What a fun version of YouTube that would be. To be fair, I do like the editing process of the video essays. So on my channel, I don't think that those will go away anytime soon. But this is just, I'm trying to embrace slowness right now in my life. And I think especially in this constantly stimulating environment in New York, it's all so busy, it's hustle and bustle. And I think I want to find a space where I can slow down and I can just speak to you guys as my truest, most authentic self. The world may feel like it's always moving so fast, but we don't have to. You and I, if you made it to this point in the video, then we're in it together, baby. We do not have to be feeling overwhelmed constantly by the pace of the world. And so you and I can slow down together. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Let's all go out and truly experience life together. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll talk again soon. Bye.